I'm just clicking buttons in the background. Try to make sure that nobody ends up.
Okay, I think I'm going to start recording and talking to myself. I don't see anyone else in this room, but hi everyone and welcome to Agile Expertise. We are currently, I'm in a breakout room and I'm all by myself, so hopefully people will join. Yes.
Hi.
Hi Sarah, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Sheetal?
Yeah, not bad, thank you. Not bad. So I was just doing a quick introduction about what we're doing. So we've got Judy Rees, who will be talking to us about Webinnexions, and that is all about connectivity and collaboration for teams in a remote setting. So yeah, welcome. So I think we'll just wait for you to join.
Thank you.
How are you finding the lockdown?
Definitely challenging. Can't lie. Ready to come out of it.
Yeah, definitely. It's getting to that point, isn't it?
I'm quite lucky. I live quite far out. So I live in Sawbridgeworth, which is towards Stansted. So we've got lots of green space. So I feel quite fortunate.
Oh, that is nice. That is nice. Yeah, we're literally in zone 2 of London. So
oh wow, that's got to be hard. Yeah.
Yeah, so spending more time in isolation, and I think this is probably, dare I say it, the first time I've probably done my hair in a while.
I know that. I was like, God, I better go and check my hair. It does make you lazy.
Yeah, it does. It really does, doesn't it?
I love your fish tank.
Oh, thank you.
That's so nice.
Yeah, it's a real background.
It is. It's lovely.
Thank you. So yeah. So I mean, like, yeah, I think we're going to wait for some other people to join us, hopefully, as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So
are you part of, I'm trying to think, the group that it's organised by? I can't even, in terms of, have you been part of organising this?
Yes, I have. In fact, I'm one of the main organisers. So I've been running the group for best part of 3 years now, maybe a bit longer.
Nice.
Yeah, it's fun. So hello, who have we got here?
Hello, my name is Neil.
How are you doing?
This is my first time with you guys, so looking forward to it.
Okay, great. Welcome. And yeah, I hope everything's going well for you during the lockdown period. I love your wallpaper.
I was going to say that.
I have seen my kids, I've hijacked their room, so I'm in their room and they're downstairs having their dinner and playing guitar or things like that.
Bless.
Nice.
Yeah. We've got a really exciting setup. So Judy is actually one of the most what's the word I should use? She's very well renowned for remote working and organising remote work sessions, and I think she's got a real treat for us today. So I hope you guys have got, you know, a little drink on the side, some nibbles. So because it's a good 90-minute session. So
nice, excellent. I've been really looking forward to this.
Oh, cool. I'm glad.
Hi, Neil.
Hello, Sarah. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Where are you, Neil?
Say that again, sorry.
Where are you?
I'm in Watford.
Oh, nice.
Do you know Watford? Are you familiar?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I've been in Watford for many years. Then moved to Milton Keynes. Moved back to Watford. Yeah. So now, I think the love for Harry Potter got me here. Not me, my kids.
Leslie, hello.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm good.
Good.
Hear me okay?
Just letting you guys know that we are in a breakout room right now, and we are the one breakout room that's going to be recorded. So as we go and progress through the sessions that we're going to do, we are going to be filmed, just as an FYI.
I better go and do my makeup then.
You've got a few minutes, like 1 minute.
I should tidy up behind me.
60 seconds. Hopefully Judy will transfer us over, and then I can do a full introduction. But yeah, no, welcome. I think it's going to be a good session today.
You're a facilitator, Sheetal.
I am, yes. So I'm one of the main founders of this group. And we have Julian Harrison, who's actually one of our sponsors. And he's a sponsor, and also they're a recruitment company, which kind of makes sense when you've got a community of Agile individuals. So so I've been doing this for 3 years now.
Nice.
Yeah, and it's been fun. And actually, this is our second remote session. Ironically, we were having, it's quite a funny story actually. So we were having some screen issues before we actually went into lockdown. So I actually went out of my way to get us a big screen TV so we could actually then display the sessions using a big screen TV, and we've turned out we've not used it. So ending lockdown, Leslie.
I work from home a lot of time anyway, so it's kind of been business as usual a little bit, but without the escape. So it's been full on enough. But I'm ready to get on the road again. I either work remotely or I work at home. So I work remotely. I mean, I travel for work, or I work at home.
Right. Okay. So you're working remote most of the time anyway. So
yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Okay. So we've been asked to move back to the main session. So off we go. I'll see you in the other room.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Hey. Oh, it's exciting when people come back into the room and you can see everybody, isn't it? Some of the people are still chatting, so they'll be back in about 36 seconds. If you haven't, I'll have to say this again if I start doing my introduction before everybody's back in the room. So for who was that the first experience of Zoom breakout rooms? How many people had not done that before? Excellent, a few people. We'll talk about that when the rest of the group is back in about 15 seconds. Lovely to see you all. I love it when everybody just magically appears. And the last couple of people will be rejoining now in just a second. See the number going up, the number of participants clicking up. 29. There we go. I think that's everybody back in the room. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi there, Judy.
Hi. It's really exciting to see you all here. This call is being recorded for publication. Could you please give me a visual indication that you have heard that and that you're okay with that? Thank you, that's much appreciated. Welcome back, Sheetal.
Thanks, Judy. Hi, everyone. I'm sure some of you know me, and I can see a few new faces in here, so welcome. We've got a really exciting new session today. It's all about remote working, and it's all relevant to the current environment. And I think Judy is absolutely the perfect person to be talking to us about anything remote working related. I think she's really come from a huge, wonderful background of Agile, Scrum, clean language. She does a lot around collaboration, inspiration, self-learning, self-organizing. And not only that, she's currently also hosting some free training sessions. I will talk about those a little bit later at the end, so Judy, please remind me if I do forget, but I don't want to hold her up. Let's get on with the show, and sit back, guys, enjoy yourselves, and let's learn stuff.
Thank you. I hope you're going to learn loads in what I think is supposed to be a 90-minute time box. I hope we're not going to be surprising anybody by saying we'll run for 90 minutes. Some things to know about Zoom if you're relatively new to Zoom. If you're seeing me big at the moment and everybody else small, have a look for a button at the top right that says Gallery View. And then you'll be able to see everybody. It makes a huge difference to the quality of the call. And what I love about being able to see everybody is I can see there are familiar faces, some people I already know, and people I've never met before. And I think that makes for a really exciting call. Other things to know about Zoom. If you're in a quiet place, please unmute yourself. If you are in a noisy place, or if you're connected to the call twice on 2 different devices, please mute yourself. Amit, that it will generate all sorts of interesting feedback and weird howl around noises if you don't mute yourself. So please mute yourself on both devices.
It should just be on the one. Yep.
Okay, fantastic. But it's great if you can unmute if you are somewhere quiet. That means we don't have the interruption of when you want to talk, you can just talk. If you want to say something in this environment, just say it. You don't need to wait for me to say, put your Q&A in the chat. You can just say it. Feel free to wave. I can't see absolutely everybody on one screen. I can see the first 25 people, and we currently have 32. So shout if I appear to be ignoring you, it's because you're on the second screen and I'm not seeing you. So if you wave and I don't call you, please shout. We'll be doing a lot of activities. It's not going to be me talking, you listening. You're going to be doing stuff. Hopefully, as Agilists, you're fully aware of the value of that in terms of experience generating much more learning than just hearing things. There is a chat function in Zoom. If you want to send messages to each other in the chat, do feel free. If you want to send messages to me, bear in mind that I am paying attention to the video stream, to the group, and I may not be able to see the chat at the same time, particularly if there's a lot of chat. So hopefully that makes sense. As I've said, this call is being recorded for later publication on Sheetal's YouTube channel. Any comments or questions before we dive in?
No.
Nope. Okay, so what I think we're here to do is to talk a bit about what a really engaging online event looks, sounds, and feels like, and the essential ingredients of web events that connect. Now, this kind of format might be used in team kind of context, but it's probably more likely to be used in the slightly larger workshop-y kind of context. And it will certainly be the kind of place where you'll be using your Agile facilitation toolkit, the stuff that you already know and enjoy. And if you've been feeling like the last few weeks have been a real struggle, hopefully you'll pick up some tips that you can instantly transfer to this suddenly remote COVID world. I've been in this business of remote events, remote working for a very long time, 10 years or more. Actually, scarily, my very first job involved being a member of a distributed team, way before the internet was even thought of. So the content that's gone into this is much more about before the COVID than, right, we're suddenly remote, how do we fix this? But hopefully there'll be some stuff from the olden days that will be high value to you now. That's my intention anyway. Given all of that, I'm curious to know what you would like from this call. And for once, I'm going to invite you to use the chat. Could you please give me one sentence in the chat about something that you would like to get from this call? And it should be fairly obvious where the chat is, but if not, I'll just put hello, and then it will call up a little red thing on your screen. If anyone's not in gallery view, where you can see everybody the same size, click gallery view at the top right of your Zoom window. It doesn't work in absolutely every edition of Zoom, but it works in most. So meetups, running workshops, how to get the team engaged and participating. Yes, absolutely. How to make remote working fun, engaging with the team, motivating people. Great. We are going to be mostly focusing on meetings and events. The larger remote working frame is outside the scope of what I've got planned. What we never dared ask about Agile Remote, that's interesting. And the fun. How can we make this fun? Yes, we can make it fun. And we, you're tempting me to do a live experiment of a physical game that some of you might know. But let's see how this works out. Yeah, so engaging, fun, motivating. This word engagement just keeps on coming up, and we will definitely be talking about engagement. So thank you very much for that. That gives me a steer as to where we want to take this. So engagement. How can we help to get people engaged? If we could do an activity in the next 5 minutes.
Cecilia, can you ask Benita to switch off the...
If we could do an activity in the next 5 minutes that you could share with your teams that would help you to stay engaged and would help them to stay engaged, would that be useful?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, here's the thing. You're going to, in this next activity, you're going to be in a pair in a breakout room. And you're, oh, I need to say, in all these activities, feel free to pass. Nothing is compulsory. However, if you do pass, please let me know that you're going to, so that I don't pair you with somebody and they end up sitting in a breakout room going, what? So please let me know if you intend not to participate. That would be great. So in this next activity, you're going to be paired with one other person. You're going to take it in turns to take 2 roles. The first role is you're going to be the talker. And in that role, you have to talk for a minute about something that's important to you. Talk for a minute about something that's important to you. That could be a work thing, it could be a family thing, it could be a hobby, something, music you're interested in, anything you can talk about for a minute. As the other role is the listener. And as the listener, you're going to go through 3 states. You're going to spend 20 seconds listening really well and encouraging people to, you're encouraging your partner to keep talking, nodding, smiling, all that stuff, actively listening for 20 seconds. At the end of 20 seconds, you're going to change. You're going to be distracted. You're going to grab your phone and you're going to be visibly distracted for 20 seconds. And at the end of 20 seconds, you're going to go back to listening well. And then at the end of the minute, you're going to swap roles and do the same thing again. Listen, be distracted, listen. Is that making sense with everybody?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, I'm just checking a couple of people who have said they're not participating. So this will make it a couple of moments for me to set up the groups because there are a few people who've said they're not participating. So bear with me just a tick and I'll get you all into pairs. So, oh, hang on. Okay. Yeah, so Julian, none of this requires Agile knowledge, and anybody else who is concerned, none of this activity requires any Agile knowledge. Okay, pairs. Right, I think we're now in pairs. So, so Amit is also not participating. Hang on a second.
I think there's 2 Amits on the chat.
Ah. So which Amit is not participating?
I'm Amit Gokhani. I'm up for participating.
You're up for participating. Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. Right, I'm going to open the rooms. I think that will be pairs. I think Sheetal, you will be out for just a moment and then I'll add you to a room as an observer. I'm going to set a timer which will close the rooms after 3 minutes. So that gives you just enough time to introduce yourselves, and there'll be a stopwatch showing how many seconds you've got. At the end of 3 minutes, you'll be brought back with only 15 seconds countdown timer. So time yourselves so you each get a minute and you introduce yourselves and you're ready to come back at the end of 3 minutes. Make sense?
Yep.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, bear with me just a second. I'm making sure that everybody's got somebody with them. Daryl, are you joining the room or are you not?
Judy, if you need me to join the room, I'm happy.
Yeah, you will need to join a room. Just bear with me just a second. I'm just trying to work out where you need to be. Because people are randomly not joining their rooms rather than telling me that they're not participating. Okay, I'm going to pop you into a room where you can observe, if that's okay, Sheetal.
No problem.
So you'll be the third.
And just something fun to do. So I enjoyed it, and I've taken a break of around 8 months because work just got so busy. But I'm currently at the moment at Greenbelt, and I started to teach some of the tiny tots classes, you know, like ages 3 to 6. And I don't know if you have any children yourself. But what I realized with kids is that I've got absolutely no authority over them whatsoever. So that was quite a challenging thing for me to do. And I would say probably my favorite part about it is sparring, which is when you're in the ring with somebody else and you know they're punching you, you have to defend, which is absolutely terrifying for me. But it's great to build up my confidence and just to try something new. And I've totally not looked at the timer this whole time.
At it.
So
It's kind of cutting into my time now, so I'll be really
I'm
quick.
so sorry. I can see the timer. Right. Go for it.
Right. Yeah, it's, well, Sheetal's on there.
Yep, you guys have recorded just to warn you, but carry on.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I attended a conference last year where there was a certain person that's on our call was presenting with a colleague at the Aginext conference. And I like going to conferences, so I'm talking conferences now. I love going to conferences, especially when they're really good sessions and really interactive interacting with the participants. So thank you for running such a session. So how many we've got? 2. Oh, good grief! Right, I think we're done.
I learned nothing about you there.
No, that was the idea.
It was a bit late or something.
That was really late. That was good. So we've got time remaining of 0. Do we disappear now?
I think it will pull us back in.
Right.
But yeah, I guess I'm thinking you guys have both had an exchange.
We have.
Yes. Yeah, mainly me. I wasn't looking at the timer. Sorry.
Yeah, I just caught the tail end of that one.
It was
okay.
Good.
Great. Okay, so I guess we can just leave the room and go back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye. Thank you.
See you in a bit. Bye.
People weren't joining their breakout rooms and it took a little while to get everybody sorted. I'll call them back in 18 seconds.
We were a bit short on time, so we literally introduced ourselves in about 2 minutes and then we had 30 seconds each.
Well, as long as you did the activity, that's the main thing.
Yeah. But I think in that time we did, I mean, Nish, who was with me, and she was distracted, and yeah, so we followed your instructions.
On purpose. It wasn't just distracted. I was listening for a bit and then I was actively distracted.
So, welcome back. Sorry, there was a bit of confusion at the beginning. Some people had not told me they were not participating, so they were finding themselves in a room on their own and asking for help and so forth. Well done for those who timed yourselves perfectly. Now, I'm curious to know, What happened when your listener was distracted? Neil.
It felt awkward to carry on talking.
Well, I think when the person that's talking then gets embarrassed because the person has disappeared or has been distracted, not listening, have no idea what you're on about. And then they come back and re-engage, and it kind of, you just missed a big chunk of what they were saying.
So quite awkward. And Marta, you were saying?
Yes, same. It was a bit odd to feel like you're talking about something that you feel strongly about, and the other person is looking around and not really paying attention. It's like, shall I carry on talking or just not say anything?
I found I lost my train of thought.
Yeah.
As the speaker, you lost your train of thought. Toby, same?
Yeah, same. And I guess probably if you think in real life, it can appear rude as well.
Yeah, you go on.
Funny enough for me, I didn't notice that the other person was not interested.
Because I was truly interested in what you were saying. I really tried to make a distraction, but maybe failed at that.
It was a very tiny one.
Yeah, it's the same with me as Paula. Even I didn't notice that Nish was distracted for a very short while.
There are always a few who can carry on talking even when their listener is distracted. Have either of you been primary school teachers at any point in your careers? Somebody I know who does this activity with their groups has a theory that it's primary school teachers that can keep talking irrespective of whether anyone's paying attention. But for most people, it's a significant problem when your listener is distracted. You lose your train of thought. You feel like nobody's bothered. You might as well not bother. You stutter, you stop speaking. And then you might start to want to shout at the person and say, come on, listen, listen, listen. Now, is there a relationship between that and what happens in online meetings and events? Chris, what are you noticing?
So I was making a note by then.
But is there a relationship between that activity and what normally happens in online meetings?
I think so, yes. So you can see the other person as soon as they're doing something else, puts you off your train of thought.
Yeah.
I think you could change. I think you could change the topic of what you're going to say as well, because you could obviously, like you say, you lose your train of thought, and you may miss out a chunk of what you're supposed to say. Or, like you say, you can. I think your tone of voice can get a little bit aggressive, or you then start disengaging with that person, thinking, well, if they're not paying attention, I'm just going to park them aside and focus on somebody who is interested.
Undoubtedly. I noticed that in myself. So I notice that when there are people on the call tonight who took no notice when I said, please tell me if you're not going to be participating so that other people are not inconvenienced, they didn't tell me. And I notice I feel really, really annoyed. And I think that's just part of how it is. If we're expecting people to be paying attention and they're not. But what happens in our online meetings when paying attention is the exception, not the rule? So many people are not paying attention in our online conversations. Paula, you're nodding. Is this something you're recognizing?
Yeah, I mean, you can always tell when people are reading their screens. They are in Slack or reading emails or talking to each other using the Zoom chat or Slack. You can tell they are like this or not looking at the same screen. Well, maybe looking at the same screen, but not at the same window, because their eyes are rolling and they're doing this, or not even this, but with like reading something and typing and not reacting to what you're saying. That sometimes you, I don't know, something you're saying something and suddenly you say giraffe and no one noticed. So it's like, what am I doing here?
Yes, why are we pink giraffing here? Kuram, what about you?
I think it also depends if we set up some alignment of not doing multitasking, because when face-to-face, it's easy to get some attention. But here, when we are sitting in front of computer, I can just do a tab and just start working, chatting with someone else. And when it comes to not listening, I think we unconsciously do that. Yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, this environment, this computer, is full of distractions. It's designed to be. Even if we turn off notifications, this is an environment where we're used to paying attention in short bursts in all sorts of directions. And even when we're in a conversation with people, those distractions are trying to attract our attention. And we're having to make an effort not to follow the distraction. And at the same time, the things that are in the room around us are also distractions. As human beings, we've evolved to pay attention to what's close, or else we'd all have been eaten by tigers by now. So if there are people moving and things moving and noises and all those kind of things in your immediate environment, those will be distracting. So the whole thing is set up to make it hard for us to pay attention. And yet, when we don't pay attention, the people who are speaking, the people who are making, who are doing the talking, they will find themselves losing their train of thought, wandering around the point, and starting to get annoyed. The worst case of this is when people put a speaker on a webinar to just talk over slides, and the speaker can't see their audience at all. Almost invariably, the speaker will become more boring when they can't see their audience, because the speaker is getting no real-time feedback. They're not getting any of the nods or smiles or facial expressions of all sorts that let them know whether people have got the point and they can move on or not. So if you want your speakers to be less boring, give them people they can see. Mm-hmm. Like this. So the fact you guys have shown up and turned your cameras on is not only making it less boring for the rest of the group, it's making it less boring for you. And I think that's actually quite a compelling reason to turn the cameras on. If you guys need an argument for people to turn the cameras on, by the way, start a meeting like this and just tell them, right, let's get cracking then. Everybody okay? Right, agenda item 1. And see how long it takes them to turn on the cameras. Because most people will then recognize it's actually really quite rude in a meeting where everybody's agreed to have their cameras on to not. Now, I'm not saying that in a meeting where people have not agreed that you suddenly demand cameras. That's not the deal. But in a small meeting where cameras are the usual form and somebody's saying no, the research shows that the reason people don't put their cameras on is just because they're doing their email. So I'm feeling like I've been talking far too long. Comments, questions, ideas before we move into the next phase of this session?
I have a question.
Go on.
Yeah, so I think what you mentioned totally makes sense, because before this meeting, I asked everyone to turn on the camera so we can look at each other. But then the question is, for example, if we are sharing some content, then what do you do then? It could be a presentation, it could be some moral. So if you have to run some presentation in this mode, how would you do that then?
Yeah, so in the next chunk, I'll be talking you through this model. And if you wanted to take me out of gallery view and into speaker view, you'll be able to see the details.
Yes.
So that's a way of doing it. Another way of doing it is I've actually got a crib sheet in slides, in Google Slides, that I can share with you if anybody's interested. Just copying the link So if you're the kind of person who likes there to be slides, here are my Google Slides, if anybody wants to follow along on another screen or something like that. And that's a different way of sharing material with your group. It's not necessary to hit the share button and go, okay, let's share the screen. Do you see what happens when I share the screen is that the energy of the group will instantly go down because you lose that visual contact. So in the next breakout activity, here's what's going to be happening. You're going to be chatting to a small group of people about the advantages and disadvantages of the traditional talk over slides webinar. What are the advantages of the traditional talk over slides webinar, and what are the disadvantages? And hoping this is going to work okay, for the first couple of minutes, you're going to be in a pair, or it's possible you might be on your own for a couple of minutes. If you are on your own for a couple of minutes, just sit and think about it and write some notes. What are the advantages and the disadvantages of talk over slides webinars? After a couple of minutes, I'll combine the groups, so you're going to be in groups of roughly 4 people. At that point, continue the conversation. See how many advantages and disadvantages you can gather as a group. And I'm going to invite you to make some notes on a Google Jamboard. I've just put the link in the slides, in the chat rather. Hopefully you should be able to join there. If you haven't used Jamboard before, on the left-hand side is a menu. The 4th thing down is a sticky note, and you can add a sticky note. Please add a pink sticky note for disadvantages and a green sticky note for advantages of the Talk Over Slides webinar, but only use the Jamboard when you're in the bigger group. Does that make sense? Okay, so a couple of minutes in pairs, and then a slightly longer chunk of time. Probably I'll be watching the board, and when the board stops moving, I will be stopping the groups. So you'll either be in a pair or you'll be on your own, and then I'll combine the groups after a couple of minutes. What are the advantages and disadvantages of the traditional Talk Over Slides webinar? Here we go. Please join your breakout. Oh, hang on. There we go.
Hi, I'm on mute. Sorry. Hi.
Yeah, how are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. I can't see your name anywhere.
It's right there. I mean, I can see it.
Yeah. So go for it. Let you start if you like.
Okay, so I really don't see much of the advantages, because for me, those kind of sessions are really distracting, or hard to focus on. But yeah, at times, definitely, if you're really into the topic and you really want to learn or grasp that, so in that ways it can be interesting. But otherwise, if we talk about maybe town hall meetings in a company, or that sort of meetings where it's just one-way information passing, so I guess those kind of over the presentation meetings are kind of the ones which I at least cannot bear. Not sure about others.
Yeah. I tend to avoid them like the plague as well. Like, sorry, pardon the pun. That was bad use of words. the environment. But yeah, I find them incredibly boring. And actually, sometimes when you're watching a webinar that you think might be of interest, and at the end of it, you're like, oh my God, this is just useless and total waste of my time, right? So, okay, let's join the combined one and see where that goes. See you there.
See you.
Hello.
Hello. I'm just trying to move you to a combined room. Just bear with me just a second. So I'm right in the middle of moving people. It's a bit fiddly.
I could stop recording again. So I just paused recording very briefly there. Okay, are we discussing in this room or am I moving to another one?
You should be in breakout room 3 at this point.
Okay.
If you click on the breakout rooms button at the bottom of
yeah, got it.
Yeah, that should take you to breakout room.
It's usually easier for the speakers because it's a one-way information route and they don't need to read the room, or maybe they anyhow don't have any way out to judge that how participants are receiving the information. So it's kind of easier for them, but I mean, how much maybe you're interested into the topic, there is at least one interval where you really get distracted for either one or the other thing. So it kind of is really, I find it difficult to keep engaged all the time.
Okay, by the way, I'm just making notes onto the Jamboard while you talk, so just carry on talking and I'll push it over there.
So we said the advantages of traditional talk over webinar. We said it's more engaging, it's more with the audience, it's connecting with the audience. It's again face-to-face interaction with the audience, less distraction. What else, Nish? You were saying something.
Well, I was saying how it's Neil was saying how there's lots of, you can have icebreakers and stuff during traditional talks, which are more difficult to sort of manifest within webinars. And if you're in a traditional talk as well, you're less likely as a participant to not do the icebreakers. So you're naturally more engaged in the content because you're out of your comfort zone whilst you're with other people doing all these things. Whereas webinars, I suppose, don't take you too much out of your comfort zone. You can sit there and do nothing if you want.
I just have a little confusion. Are we talking about the traditional webinar approach in remote environment or in the normal environment?
I thought it was a webinar, so actually in the remote environment.
Yeah.
That was
in the remote environment as opposed to, okay,
I
fine.
guess in remote,
yeah, so the advantages of working in the
less engaging ones. So I think it will be reverse as we discussed, but not sure.
That's what I've got down. So okay, let's just move to just positives. What's good about it? Might learn something.
Yeah.
I think you can get quite a lot across in webinars, right? You can cover quite a large amount of content in short space of time because you can use sharers and people are looking at a screen, so they can engage with your content.
Definitely,
I guess more number of people can participate over the webinars when there is less limit as compared to the other ones.
In smaller numbers, yeah.
Yeah.
And
I mean, no space constraints. The technology helps. You can, the facilitation with the use of technology is helpful. I mean, you can add more visuals, graphics, make it more visual than just a lot of talk.
Yeah, and it kind of provides more flow to the conversation in this kind of setup. There are less distractions for the speaker, I would say.
Yeah, so that's when we are engaged and when we're participating, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's an advantage. Any more disadvantages?
You can have, the advantage is also you can have some live demos during, so it's real-time demos or live demos.
Yeah, that's true. Death by PowerPoint, I like that one.
That's a good one. I think one of the negatives is that you might feel that you've lost some time. So if you find that the webinar is not of any use, then you might just find it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
And maybe distracting in terms of the participants not being in the physical environment or equivalent virtual environment. It's just that you can't be engaged, I guess.
Yeah.
I think what's one thing that's good about some of these some of the webinars as well is that, so for example, the speaker today, is her name Judy? I'm sorry, Judy. So Judy can actually sit there and read people's names and be like, oh, so Neil, like, what do you think? That would never happen, like, I guess in real life, but also just in a talk, like, if you're just talking, then it's something different.
And there is no facility to read the room.
Yeah, disadvantage.
Everybody survived. Looked like you were having some lively conversations, judging from what was happening on the board. We're not going to do a big debrief, but do take a moment to look what ended up on that board. There's a lot of interesting stuff there, both on the plus and on the minus side of traditional webinars. Before we do any debrief of that, I'm going to invite you to do something that I always do in any event, online event that's longer than an hour. And this one is going to go over the hour. So between now and 10:02, your job is to stand up, move away from your computer and rest your eyes for 3 minutes.
Sound of that.
Fantastic.
Really fine.
Good one.
Yeah. It's not really. So Hal, are you an automaton? You don't need to rest your eyes.
Felt good.
Everybody coming back? Now, I don't know about you, but I'm suffering Zoom fatigue on a lot of these days. And one of the reasons is that people are running from meeting to meeting to meeting without ever getting a rest in between. It's a lot of cognitive load, particularly if you've got a lot of people on screen. So be aware that taking a rest is a good idea. NASA, who know a bit about remote meetings, always make a rule that if a meeting goes over 45 minutes, they take a break. And it simply works. Is there anybody on the call who does that as a matter of habit?
No.
Zara?
Yeah, we do. So in all of ours, we have a rule that if it's 45 minutes or longer, we make sure we have like maybe a 10-minute break, 15-minute break, depending.
And what difference does it make?
Just people are way more engaged. So it just means everyone's had time for a comfort break, taken kind of their eyes away from the screen. And it just means they're so much more engaging.
Thank you.
Yeah, people start to go to sleep otherwise.
Yeah, so we've already covered a couple of ways of keeping people engaged. So taking breaks is not just good for you, it's a way of keeping people engaged. Getting people to listen rather than be distracted is itself a way of keeping people engaged. Getting people to do things in small groups is a way of keeping people engaged. Small groups, small teams are where the action is. That's where the work happens. And they're much more likely to keep people engaged than big groups. Now, in some of the small breakout groups, there will have been people who were not participating, because in that round, I didn't carefully separate out the non-participants. Is there anybody who was in a group with a non-participant who would comment on what that experience was like? Maybe all the non-participants participated. Moses?
No, actually, I was in a group, yeah, with participants, yeah.
And how was it being in a group with participants? Did you have an interesting conversation?
Yeah. It's like I feel like as I was face to face, it was was a very safe environment, you know, to share my ideas. People were listening, asking questions, so we were interacting to each other. So yeah, as I said, I feel like it was face to face conversation.
Mm-hmm. And I think I'm right in saying we met at an event at Skills Matter, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people here will have been at events in Skills Matter. What I'm thinking about, the way I'm thinking about this kind of event is that by using breakout rooms, we're simulating some of the stuff that happens in that kind of venue, where there are always small group conversations. When you're giving a talk in the room, you don't, as the speaker, it's not usually your job to worry about the social interactions, but people will be doing it anyway. People will be talking to each other as they come into the room. As soon as you take the coffee break, people will turn to each other and say a few words about what was happening. And at the end, people will go for a drink. And that's not accidental. Humans do a lot of their learning socially. They pay attention to stuff and then discuss it with each other. And they outsource their understanding to other people. So by talking to other people, they actually figure out what they believe. And too often online, we strip out all that interaction stuff and pretend that people do all their learning just by sitting there staring at a screen and listening. It's not true. It's never been true. But until the last few years, we had to put up with it because we had no alternatives. Now we have alternatives. Am I being controversial?
Well, I would say that even like using the traditional presentation, we still have the opportunity to interact with people. Even then, we are not talking about technology. It's just, you know, to take a break during that during the talk and interact with people. But for some reason, in the traditional talk, we tended to just present and talk and open questions, open for questions at the end of the presentation.
Mm.
Again, I don't think it was just limited by technology. It was just like as human beings, I don't know.
Just how it's always been done.
Yeah.
Yeah, you turn up, you give a talk, and then you go away. but that's not actually the most effective way of getting people to learn something new or to do something new. If you want people to do things, you need to get them talking to each other about how they might apply it. So let me explain, if I may, this model that's behind me, which is a model that I call the Web Events That Connect model. If you want to make me big, click the what now says speaker view at your top right, which will allow you to read the text on this slide. So basically, this is a description of what I've been doing in my online training and online events for the last 5 years or so, and it works in terms of keeping people engaged. At its heart is an iterative sequence of content, activity, debrief. Content, activity, debrief. The content input chunk should be no more than 10 minutes before you get the group to do something, ideally in small groups, and then come back and talk about what they did. And that sequence, content, activity, debrief, should take no more than 20 to 25 minutes total. Some of you will know the Pomodoro technique of managing your work, and that is based on time periods of 20 to 25 minutes because most people can stay focused for that amount of time on one topic. And similarly, this goes in sequences of 20 to 25 minutes. At the end of 2 of those, what do you need? You need a break. And then you might go again with the content, activity, debrief. And outside of that, there are 2 extra lines at the top and the bottom. The purple bits are the bits that happen outside of the meeting. They're really, really important online. They're important when you're in person as well, but they're especially important online. What happens before you meet and what happens after you meet? How are people going to prepare for this event, and how are they going to stay connected and take action afterwards? If you don't put that in place, people will feel frustrated or they'll turn up unprepared or both. And the other thing, the yellow pieces. Opening, focus and become present. Often in online events, we expect people to come running into the room and start without a moment to regroup. It's really, really important that people are allowed to come to the space, pause, and move their attention to what you want them to talk about, or they'll just be thinking about whatever they were doing before. Similarly, at the end, you want a closing. You want people to think, right, this is what we did, this is what I'm going to do with it, and I know we've closed that off now and I can move on. All of that is not very unusual. For anyone who does training as part of their thing, they will recognize this pattern. What's different is thinking, actually, this is how we can make web events work, and you're experiencing it this evening. It's much more engaging than somebody talking over slides. I'm going to stop sharing that virtual background because it makes my head look a funny shape. Pause for questions before I send you off to breakout rooms to talk about it. Paula. No, you're just holding your glass. Sorry, your virtual background meant it looked like you were holding your hand up. Any questions? Okay. In a moment, you're going to be in breakout rooms of 3 or 4. And my challenge to you is to pause for a few minutes and think about what's wrong with it. How could this, why is it that this could not possibly work? Why won't this idea work for you and the people you work with? So that's your challenge, is to talk about why won't it work.
Do you mean the model that you just explained?
The model that I've just described, why won't it work?
Over a webinar, right?
Yeah. Or in whatever situation you find yourself in, why is this a really bad idea? And you're going to have 3 minutes, no, let's make it 5 minutes to talk about that, starting from now.
Hello.
Hi, Shetul, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you, Q?
I'm fine.
Sorry. My bad. I'm just like, you know what? I have to say, it's so good that you can actually read people's names, but yeah, I've kind of said it as it was spelled. I do apologize.
Yeah. No, that's fine. I get it all the time, so I'm very used to it.
Hi.
Oh, hello.
Hi. Hello. Hi, Shetul. And how do you say your name? Shetul and Q?
Kawe.
Kawe.
Kawe, yes.
Kawe.
Yeah.
So it's always, I prefer to hear rather than seeing names, because I'll hear it and then apply it to the letters.
It's easier, right, when you hear it.
Good to meet you both.
Hi.
Thank you, and welcome to the talk. So just so you know, you guys are being recorded, so we have to work the hardest here. So what makes you think that this might not work?
So I'm thinking about in my particular situation, my company currently uses WebEx, and WebEx, from my understanding, doesn't have the same functionality as Zoom to do breakouts. I think it does if you have a trainer WebEx, but for just normal WebEx that we don't have a breakout. So I think I would probably want to think about some solutions as to how we can have something similar.
Yeah.
So,
I think WebEx, I think you still have chat though, don't you?
Yes. Yeah.
So maybe you could use the chat room as a way of just having. It's still going to be in a group, isn't it? So yeah, that wouldn't work. So yeah, that's a good point. So I think the lack of features on other video conferencing tools is one of the reasons why it wouldn't work. Irene, what about you?
So I think it's generally a good idea, but is it a bad idea? So is it a bad idea if you're not confident, if you're one of those people who thinks you should be hovering, micromanaging and want to hover around the groups? So how do you bounce around these little breakout rooms to check understanding and answer questions?
Yeah, that's really interesting actually, because I'm just going to put it out there. So for the slackers, it's almost like you've got no choice but to get things done. You're actually forced into the rooms. And I think it could actually lead to a place where, if you don't really know much about the subject matter, for example, you could find yourself embarrassing yourself or too shy, or, you don't want to say too much, just out of fear of, any kind of consequences that may occur. I think, in my view, why this wouldn't work is I would put it down to the actual speaker. Whoever's hosting, it's down to them to coordinate, and I think it's that lack of coordination skill that could potentially, stop something like this from working.
Yeah. That and the setup of psychological safety, so making it safe for people to talk, and that it's not about judgment, it's just get those ideas out there. Not right or wrong. We're here to explore and learn.
And that needs to be communicated, doesn't it? So yeah. So I think maybe having some things.
You're on mute.
On me? I'm on mute.
I thought you were for a minute. Sorry.
And I was just going to quickly go back to your point, Irene, about the speaker jumping to the different breakout rooms, just to ensure people have understood what's being said. I do think there is also going to be an element of trust that needs to be given to teams, because if I think about, because we know that teams are mixed, and there's some really extroverted, strong characters, and there's some people who may be a bit introverted, but we have to kind of, as facilitators, we would have to trust that people are actually doing the activity in the breakout room. Because I know I might be itching thinking, oh, I hope they're actually doing it, but we have to really trust that our teams are going to be doing actually doing those activities. So I think the debrief, sorry, there's a comment.
Oh, why and where might this web event and connect model be useful?
Oh,
okay.
So yeah, I was going to say, just to round up on that, the trusting, and I think in the debrief is where you would really be able to see whether people have been successful in the breakout rooms and worked on the activity.
Yeah, so it's almost like you're forced into, you're kind of forced into this breakout room, aren't you? And you've not really been given a choice as to which way or which direction you go. It feels a little bit random at the moment, but maybe that's how Judy's sort of like executed this. I don't know. But why might it be useful? I would say it would be useful for workshop settings.
Yes.
So running and hosting and coaching on workshops, I think that would be quite good.
Yes.
It's great with well, distributed teams. You know, if they're working just in different locations, the fact that you can have them in little breakout rooms so they get to know each other.
Yeah.
Not just to do work, but to have those little social chats as well.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it would be good for generating ideas, because sometimes, especially now that everybody's working remote, it's quite difficult to get people to input. But if you do the breakouts, maybe people feel more confident to say 1 or 2 ideas and then come back together to the larger group. So I think it's good for generating ideas.
Yeah, and actually having a voice as well, right? So people can actually feel a little bit more comfortable talking without feeling like they are interrupting or being interrupted, so to speak. So yeah, that's a really good one.
Basically what I'm hearing is giving everybody a voice, because they've got that time and space because it is a small group.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's quite valuable actually, making sure that people have the capacity and the space to actually say what they think. I think in terms of if you're checking your emails and you get thrown into a breakout room, the chances are you won't see that person, because I think, so I'm going back to the negatives again, but ultimately, you know, what will happen is that you won't notice that button to click, so you'll end up not in the breakout room. So there's a chance you could miss out on things as well. Right?
That's true.
That's true.
That's true.
Because rooms are going to be closing in 30 seconds.
Okay. Are you guys enjoying the show right now? Is it all perfect?
Yeah, it's definitely engaging to some other sessions that I've joined. I think a lot of speakers are talking about remote working these days, but this is probably one of the more engaging ones I've joined. So
fantastic, that's good to know.
Definitely.
Cool. I'll see you guys on the other side.
Right,
thank you very much. Nice to meet you both.
Nice meeting you both.
Bye.
You dropped off the call.
Yeah, something happened. So something happened for me.
It's annoying when that happens, isn't it?
Yeah. I think I got disconnected and then connected again.
Yeah, so anyway, everyone's back. So let's hear from a few of the groups. What are some of the ways that this might just possibly be useful?
Hi, Judy. So in my breakout room, we discussed that this type of technique may be useful when you're generating ideas, because when you're with a large group, it's quite difficult for everybody to have a voice. But if you have the breakout, then smaller teams can maybe come up with 2 or 3 ideas, and then when it comes back to the group, then it's quite effective. So we think it's good for generating ideas.
Generating ideas, great, thank you. Who's got something different?
I think we discussed that we should try it with the leadership team, because one of our members says it's very difficult to get the leadership team try these things. We say, why not run it as an experiment? In the beginning of it, just give them like a meeting charter and say, in the middle of it, we're going to have a breakout, and I want you to go and discuss about, I would like you to go and discuss about X, Y, Z, and let them, so they already prepare that it's going to happen, and they know what the requirement will be.
Thank you. So with the leadership team, who's got something different or similar?
So we talked about using it for retros, for planning sessions. Also thinking as well, when you've got like dominant voices, this is great, because breaking into smaller groups means that people are more likely to talk in those smaller groups as well.
So people are much more likely to talk, aren't they? The quieter people are much more likely to talk, especially in that kind of 1, 2, 4 all structure that we used earlier on. Thank you. And Nish, were you about to say something?
No, but I mean, are you now going to move on to why it might be difficult to use this?
Now, I understand that it might be difficult. There's lots of contexts where it's utterly irrelevant and where it can't possibly work.
Yes. So, I mean, not that we didn't spend that much time talking about that, but I think I'm trying to work. So, our company's got a 4-hour-long workshop planned next week that thankfully I've managed to wiggle my way out of. But basically, I was actually thinking whether in a very content-rich environment where, you know, it's been a sort of 3-month-long project that it's just a download of all the information, whether it would work. And I actually think that it potentially could if our team were receptive to try and do some of the upfront work that it might take to kind of get the facilitation right. In our room, we were talking about what good a job you guys were doing actually here to kind of keep everyone engaged. But for a content-heavy thing, you need to have a really strong facilitator, someone who's willing to sit there and think about how that meeting's going to run, and then obviously have the content background and make sure that everyone's in the right room to facilitate all the breakout sessions as well. So it takes a lot more upfront like preparation. But yeah,
absolutely.
Actually,
yeah, it takes a lot of preparation. So that kind of big event. So I was talking this afternoon to UNICEF. They've got a big event with their global partners. That means the governments, the education departments of all the governments around the world. And they're having what would normally be a 2-day in-person event. And they want that to be 2 4-hour sessions over 2 consecutive days. And I'm talking to them about how do we make that really compelling? How do we make it exciting and engaging? And part of the trick is the preparation. You need to break the information download into preparation, so stuff that people can read or listen to or watch in their own time, and then small chunks in the event itself. And that's the way that people will actually act on what they learn. A 4-hour information download is bad enough when it's on TV.
Yeah.
Where you're working with professional producers and cameramen and all that stuff. Even if it's one of those telethon things, trying to stay focused for 4 hours just isn't really doable, is it? And yet people are expecting to just pick up their in-person events, drop them online, and magically keep people engaged. It's not going to work.
I think there's something quite interesting there, and actually what you're saying makes me think of how movies are made. How is it that we can actually stay engaged for, let's just say for argument's sake, you know, a movie could be 2.5 hours long. How do we stay engaged in a movie, and what can we take from that to apply here? And one thing I've learned is it's scene changing. It's changing the scenery. So you flip between different scenes in order for, you know, the person watching staying engaged. So I thought that was really interesting. And so how do you think we could apply that here?
So what we're doing here is every 5 minutes or so something new is occurring. In a film, it's seconds between each shot.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're constantly moving the perceptual position.
Yeah.
Quite difficult.
I do think it's a bit different. Like from a film, we watch a movie to kind of switch off and almost like you kind of submerge yourself into that world, whereas we come to a meeting to be engaged and to participate. So it's slightly different. I get what you're saying, but I think, yeah.
The film is a bit of escapism normally, isn't it? It's not, you're going there to relax and sit back and enjoy yourself.
Are you not escaping?
Without having to concentrate a huge amount.
Yeah. So if it takes seconds, so if for someone to not have to concentrate and yet stay engaged, the shot changes every few seconds. And we know that if the shot doesn't change for an hour and a half, everyone will have switched off. Somewhere in between those two things is where we need to be pitching. And the research shows that if you've only got the audio stream for your training or your event, you want to be forcing an interaction from your participants about every 2 minutes, if you can. If you've got the video stream, you've got somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes before you have to change things up. But once you go into 15 or 20 minutes of presentation mode, particularly if it's over slides, you've lost the audience. No matter how interesting or how big a name your speaker is, you will lose your audience when you have too long a chunk of time. Okay. Anything else from those breakout groups, from places you thought it might work or it might not work?
I think there's two things. We kind of came up with advantage and disadvantage. The advantage is that when you're put into a breakout room, you're forced to have these conversations about whatever the topic of interest is. If, on the other hand, you're checking your emails, you're not going to see that button to go into the breakout room, so you're going to miss out. Mm-hmm. So that way, you know, there's pros and cons to that as well. And the other thing was actually the technology. Zoom has this technology, other video conferencing tools don't. So
yeah, we talked about that as well. Like, it is dependent on having access to Zoom, and if you don't, like, I don't know, I've used a few others, but they don't seem to be as good in terms of breakout rooms. I've used Blue Jeans as well, and that was okay, but a lot trickier.
Yeah, they're nowhere near as good. It is possible to do breakout rooms or to improvise and make something a bit like breakout rooms, but they're none of them as smooth. But hopefully it's coming. Microsoft Teams have cracked and said you're allowed to see more than 4 people.
Really?
Yeah, apparently from, I don't know whether it's tomorrow or the next day, there will be 9 people in Vision on Microsoft Teams.
Oh.
Looking forward to it.
Breakout rooms has been on their backlog for a long time. I wouldn't hold your breath if I were you. But you can improvise. You can create multiple Microsoft Teams meetings, send people out, tell them to time themselves and come back. It is possible to do it. So there's a whole bunch of challenges, and it's worth the effort. Mixture of things going on. So we're coming towards the end of our time. There are a couple of things I wanted to mention to you. If you want to go deeper into this stuff, I've shared a link, 2 links in the chat. One is a link to a free booklet, a how-to guide about web events that connect, which basically has the recipe. If you want to do this, there's the recipe there, the instructions. So that's the free version. If, on the other hand, you really want to get good at this and you want to learn and engage and practice in a small group, there is actually a live training happening next week. On Monday and Wednesday afternoon next week. Sheetao, shall I mention the offer?
I'm on mute. Yeah, no, go for it. It's fine.
So because that's my course, I'm hosting it, I'm running it, and I'm promoting it, I can make as many special offers as I like. So if there are 2 people on this call who would like to attend that class, and you would like a 30% discount, the first 2 people to email Sheetao after this call to say that they would like that can have a 30% discount on the published price. Those two half days, small group, really powerful training. You will learn this stuff backwards in that time.
Yeah, guys, I think that's a really fantastic offer. When Judy says email, message me on the meetup group, and I will certainly let Judy know.
Fantastic, thank you. And one of the things that I said at in that model was that one of the important things is closing, bringing the things to a close, allowing people to work out what they're going to do with what they've learned. So, lightning quickly, you're going to be in a breakout room with 1 or 2 other people to spend just a few minutes talking about what are you going to do with this? What's something you're going to do as a result of attending this session tonight? I'm opening the rooms now.
Hi, Neil. You're right.
Good, good, not too bad. Just the two of us, or?
Looks like it. So yeah, why not? Yeah. So what will you do?
So yeah, some good takeaways from this. I think important is taking break. So if the meeting's over 45 minutes, pause for 5 minutes, give yourself a break and freshen up. The second point is, which I've not tried, but I'm going to try, is the model which Judy suggested. So content, breakout, and debrief.
Yeah.
I think that's I'm quite excited about that. That sounds
really
like pretty engaging to me.
Yes, yes. So what I'll do is I'll share Judy's slides on the meetup comments as well, so that way we can all grab those strategies. So we don't have to remember them; we've got access to them. So,
fantastic.
Yeah.
And I'm quite looking forward to the course as well. I think so.
Are you interested?
Yeah, I am. So maybe after this, I'll give you a shout out.
Okay, drop me an email. I think we've got to keep it fair for everybody. So just drop me an email, and it will be on a first come, first serve basis. So yeah, but I think it's going to be a really good course. Judy's an excellent facilitator.
Let me do it now whilst I'm talking. So your takeaways, Sheetal, anything from you?
I think I'm going to use it to host workshops, but also as an educational piece as well. I think it's got a lot of value that we can take as takeaways, and I think a lot of my clients could really benefit from actually understanding all this. And I think now going forward, if I run online events, I'm going to use the same strategy as well, and make sure that we prepare in advance and make sure we've got a good close as well. So yeah. Brilliant. Yeah. You enjoyed the session?
Yeah, really, really nice one. Worth my time. I mean,
this was your first time, wasn't it?
Yeah, first time.
Okay. So we've been running for 3 years. Where have you been?
Well, I've been hiding. So my last contract was I was traveling Monday to Thursday in Germany. So.
Oh, okay, fair enough. We'll let you off then.
So early this year, I'm back in London. So close.
Okay.
I mean, so that's how.
Oh, brilliant. Okay. Yeah. Well, we've been running these for a fair amount of numbers, 3 years. So
fantastic.
yeah, it's been really good. So this is our second remote session, and I think that there's a lot of value to be added, to do this remotely as well. So I think it might be something we might continue doing even after the lockdown. So
sounds fantastic.
Yeah, looks like we're being called back. Shall we head back? I'll see you there.
Please. See you then.
Bye.
Yay, welcome back. So
thank you.
Let's hear just a few things from people. Now, I've got a virtual ball here. Who wants to go first? And then you say your thing, and then you throw the ball to the next person. Who's willing to be the first up?
Me.
Give me a wave.
Toby.
Who's that?
Me.
Toby.
Hi.
Over to you.
Tools. So Jamboard and Zoom. And I'll throw the ball to Tilly.
Is that me?
Yeah.
Okay.
What was every 45 minutes when in a meeting to provide the team a break. I'm a Scrum Master, so I facilitate quite a few retrospectives planning sessions. So yes, allowing the team to have a break is definitely something I need to do more of. I'm going to throw the ball to Julian. You're on mute, Julian.
So there we go. So I'm doing some training next week, and I actually put together a very long PowerPoint presentation, which I'm going to be completely scaling back. So I'm going to be trying to get that down to 2 slides, and I'm going to basically make sure that we do breakout room every 20, at least once every 20 to 25 minutes. I did try to do it the other day, but I couldn't work out how to do it. So before I do that, I'll also need to prepare as well.
Who are you going to throw the ball to, Julian?
I can't. I can only see one person. I'm on the mobile. So
somebody wave, and we'll tell him who to throw to.
I'll catch it.
Chital, there you go.
Yeah, so I think I'm going to sort of adopt a similar approach, and you know, sort of like go through content, perform some activity, and then debrief. So I think I'm really going to take that on board. In fact, I have a session tomorrow, so I'm going to practice, you know, engaging people using breakout rooms as well. I've not used breakout rooms before, so I think this will be a first time. Oh, I'm going to throw the ball to Kelly.
Thanks, Chital. I've got a couple of things that I'm going to try apply it to. So I'm doing a session next week on how to do estimation remotely for Agile teams. So can use some of these top tips in there. And then we're also trying to organize a team day. It would normally be like a half day activity with like a business update and then team bonding games and stuff like that. So we've been asked to see what we can do remotely, and so I'll think about what we can do from today. And I will throw the ball to Marta.
Thank you. What I was thinking about is two things, basically. First, throughout the session, I was thinking I need to tell a couple of colleagues about this. I work as a Scrum Master, and I think we have a lot of prep work with our teams, especially for the retro, and I think this would work really well, because sometimes we were discussing how we found ourselves talking too much, or maybe 3 people in the whole retro talking a lot, and whilst when we are co-located, it's easy to try and pass the balls between themselves, have a physical token. It is not as easy to encourage conversations while online, till now. So I'm gonna try the breakout rooms, definitely. And I'd like to pass the ball to Ben.
Thanks. Myself and one of my colleagues are preparing a leadership workshop in the coming weeks. And we've been thinking how to keep it engaging, because we've been doing a lot of online training. And the tooling we have at the place I work it doesn't have breakout rooms, it doesn't have all this sort of stuff. And it feels very hard to gauge the engagement and to generate more engagement. You're constantly trying to ask questions, but you just be met with silence. So we're going to think hard about how to do that. I think I really like the model and the way it sort of breaks up into nice sized chunks. It's a bit of a similarity to like training from the back of the room, having those small like 4C chunks. So yeah, I like that. So I'm gonna be applying that to this leadership workshop, figuring out how we can do it and get some good engagement there. I'm going to throw the ball to back to Judy by the looks of it. She's waving.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, we want to finish within our time, because that's one of the ways to get people to say that your meeting was a good one. Is as long as it starts and finishes on time and it has an agenda, people will say it was a great meeting. So we will finish on time. Thank you very much indeed. One final tip: if you're wanting to use breakout rooms in Zoom, they are not switched on by default. You need to go to the Zoom website in your account and turn them on. And then they do work. They even work in the free accounts.
Oh,
But
really?
you do need to switch them on first. And with that, as at 29 minutes past, I'm going to say, it's been lovely seeing you all, meeting you all, being with you all. Thank you very much for your active attention. This has been fun. And thanks very much to Chital and Nick for inviting me.
Thanks, Judy.
Great. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Fantastic session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
How do I leave?
Don't worry, I'll turn it off in just a second.
Judy, I was thinking, do you want to send us the link to your course and we'll put it on the meetup?